In order for a determination to be made of what changes or additions need to be made to the existing code, first, we all need to see what the existing code can do. So what I'm going to be doing is walking you through an example of a patient interaction as it would have happened in the pilot program that we ran in Buffalo. So I assume that most of the people viewing this have seen the demo video, but just as a refresher, the Carney system is designed to work as a dual smart card system. And what I mean by that is that much the same way that a bank safety deposit box has two keys, one held by the customer, one by the bank manager, our system is designed to use two smart cards, one held by the patient and the other by the provider. This patient's card provides the link to that patient's record, and the provider's card ensures that the provider sees all and only the information that they have permission to. For example, a receptionist may be able to access their demographic information only, but a nurse might be able to see their prescription history. So we're going to begin with our patient's visit to their provider, and the provider logs into the Carney system. Our Dr. Richard Thomas. I have logged in previously, so it's giving me the notification that the account is logged in somewhere else. So as soon as I log in, it will kick off that other connection. Again, making sure that only the doctor who is supposed to be seeing the information is able to at that time. So if a smart card is inserted, that patient's record is going to populate automatically. For this location, Evergreen decided to not have the smart card be necessary to see the patient's record. So what we have here is the option to search for and select a patient. As you can see, the patient's photos appear in the search so that the identity can be verified. We're going to choose Anna Amadina here. Okay. Now note that we can't create a new prescription until we check the patient in. And this is to help prevent anything but the most deliberate entries. So accidentally clicking on something won't send a script to the pharmacy. And as I'm sure you've all heard, anything that is done in a patient's record is logged. So preventing accidental entries also prevents having to cancel prescriptions entered in error and give reasons for that cancellation. We'll see that process a little bit later toward the end of this demonstration. So I'm going to check our patient in. And as I said, Evergreen chose not to make the smart card necessary. So the system is reminding us of that here. So we clicked on check in, and now we're going to have access to our prescription pad. And here it is. We click on add a new prescription. Now to make things a little more convenient for the prescriber, we have a couple of options. The default shows the prescriptions that this patient has received before. We can also quick tab to the prescriptions that that particular prescriber has chosen before, or we can look at all of them. Now note that this list that you're looking at right now is directly from Metaspan. It's not coming from us. So any of the recommended dosages, interactions, what have you, are being pulled from their database in real time. So that means when they do an update, we don't have to worry about anything that we have being out of date. And for the more legal-minded, I'll mention the word liability, and trust that you see where I'm going with that. So we can also search by our medication name. So we're going to look for Percocet and choose the medication that we want to prescribe. Select our SIG or directions. Okay, so you'll notice two things here. Most obvious is this big yellow triangle, and I'll explain that in a second. The other thing I'll point out is this CS on top of the printer icon. When the pilot program was being run, the law was that any controlled substance couldn't be transmitted electronically to a pharmacy to be filled. That had to be a paper prescription. So this symbol here is to point out that the script will have to be printed. My understanding is that the law has changed since then. And the yellow triangle is our medication conflict warning. So if we click on that, we'll see that because this patient is allergic to codeine, taking Percocet may cause a reaction. Now, us as prescribers, we know that this prescription should be filled anyway. So we select the medication and process the prescriptions. It asks us if we're sure, and we are. And now it gives us the interaction warning a second time. And before this prescription can make its way to the pharmacy, we have to not only acknowledge the potential interaction, but also give a reason for overriding this warning. So this can be done separately, once for the allergy and once for the alcohol, or we can do it together. We're going to ignore the warning and give our reason. My pharmaceutical knowledge is somewhat limited, so for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to say that we don't have an alternate medication. We click on continue to complete the process. Okay, you'll see that it's done, and you'll see I have a new download. This is the PDF of the printed prescription, as I mentioned before, for the controlled substance. As you can see, it really just gives the essentials. This wasn't part of the goal of the pilot. And now we can see that the status has changed. It's been printed, and it's now an active medication. Now that's how a physician would go about prescribing a medication. But there are nurses and I believe physician's assistants as well that can prescribe under another doctor's prescribing ID number. So how is that process different? For the most part, it isn't, but there's an extra step that we need to include to ensure that the doctor whose number it is aware of the prescription and approves of it. So we're going to log out of our Dr. Richard Thomas, and we're going to log in as our prescribing nurse, Mary Clarence. So as you see here, Mary Clarence is prescribing at Evergreen Clinic and is using Richard Thomas's prescribing ID. If there are several doctors she can prescribe under, she can choose the appropriate name from the drop-down list here. So once again, we'll find Anna. And we can either click on the text box search or it will pop the results underneath. And you can immediately see that the prescription that Dr. Thomas wrote out now appears in Anna's active prescriptions. Different doctor could even be a different facility, but if something is prescribed to a patient, that data follows them. So that makes it both easier to ensure the health of the patient and it combats prescription fraud. We're going to check our patient in again. So our prescription pad is active and confirm that the smart card being present is not necessary. And you can see the Percocet in the active prescriptions, and we're going to add one more for Famvir. And we've seen how this process works already. And as you can see, there's no conflicts here. So we're going to be able to process the prescription pad without filling out any overrides. So we're going to check Famvir and process. Confirm it. Now notice that this is a little bit different. It doesn't tell us the prescription went through. It says that it's waiting for approval. That's because this nurse is prescribing under Dr. Richard Thomas. We can look at approval pending, and here's our prescription. The status says to approve. So we can't approve it because we don't have that role, but Richard Thomas does. We're going to log out and show you what our doctor now sees. You'll see that we have messages waiting for us, and that Mary Clarence has put through a prescription that needs our approval. Okay, and you'll see it automatically brought us to the correct patient, and it has checked them in already. So all we need to do is check the prescription and put it through. Okay, now you'll see no more approval is needed. The medication has been approved and processed. And if you take a look at the active medications, you see that the Famvir has been sent to the pharmacy and it's ready to be filled. So that is going to be our next stop. We're going to log in as our pharmacist, Walter Cruz. It helps when you type in the correct password. And now we'll see what Walter looks at when he logs in. Again, if the patient presents their card, their record will populate automatically, but for our purposes, we use the patient's search to find Anna again. And we get our smart card notification. There we go. Okay, so 2 things to notice here. First is because of the former law about printing prescriptions for controlled substances, the Percocet is not an option to dispense. Second, the Famvir is. So we click on check patient in. There's our smart card warning. And we're ready to dispense. The system will confirm that we are actually dispensing this medication. It's going to be set to active. Now we can see in our active medications, both the Famvir and the Percocet are present. If we go back to our Dr. Richard Thomas, the status for the Famvir has been changed from sent to pharmacy to now active. So it lets us know that the patient has picked up and presumably started taking their medication. And this is an important distinction because one of the points we were proving with this system in Buffalo is that we can virtually eliminate medication fraud through what's called doctor shopping, a patient getting the same medication prescribed by multiple doctors. So by using our system, the data follows the patient. It isn't kept siloed by each practice. So if Dr. Smith prescribes something and then Dr. Jones 2 towns over can then see that medication virtually immediately. And that convenient portability also serves as a check against fraud. So that is all for the prescribing part, but as I said before, prescriptions can't be simply deleted from our system. So a reason has to be attached to each cancellation. So we're going to discontinue these 2 medications. And as you see, a reason is mandatory. We have to say why we're canceling these medications. I say it's because we're doing a demo. You see they're removed from the active prescriptions, but they don't go away completely. They can still be found under inactive. And if we look at the information for that prescription, we see the reason for the cancellation. And that is a brief look into how a patient would go through our system. So I appreciate your attention. If there are any questions, I know we have a few minutes put aside for that, and I believe Raf has some information about a data protection company as well that I think he wants to share. So if you have anything to ask of me or anyone else on the team, now would be a great time.
Thanks, Sean, for the demo. Actually, I was looking for like when you are entering the provider's information. So do you, is it in the demo system that you are skipping the provider card, or it's like it's optional? So what's the importance of the provider card? So if you can do everything without the card, then what's the importance of that card?
That was selected by this facility. We do have the option to require the card. As you saw the warning that popped up that says the card was not present. We can make that mandatory so that the provider and the patient both have to have their cards present. For this particular facility in Evergreen and Buffalo, they didn't require that.
Okay, and also like maybe one use case which I had in my mind. So when the doctor writes the prescription, so the doctor writes few diagnostic tests. So let's say doctor writes a blood test or any radiology test. So the result, the report of the test will come after a day or two. So if there is a if there is urine culture test, then report will come after 3 days. So who will upload that report? The assistant, the doctor, or the patient, and how they will upload that report, or it will be done automatically?
Well, that would be more of a full. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
No, you can do that technically, but what we offer is the choice. In other words, what we're showing you now is what we did at Evergreen Clinic for a long time. But the purpose of doing what we're doing now is so that you will instruct us as to how you want this organized.
Oh,
so
okay.
it will be your organization's decision.
Okay, got it. So basically, it's like, so right now we will see, okay, this is the system, and how do we want it to be like,
Exactly.
so that we can deploy it here.
Yeah. You
Exactly.
decide
So,
everything.
Yeah. So
We are
Ken,
trying to send you what we have done, and we are saying that our Chief of Operations, Dr. Ed Wassel, who is on the call, and his team are prepared to go ahead and to make whatever adjustments or additions that your organization requires. What we will do is we will send you a video link of this particular session where we are right now, and the idea of your team will review it and come back to us with questions and with what your requirements are, frankly, and then we will proceed on that basis.
Sure. Yeah. And do we also have an app for the patient, or it is only web-based?
We can. It is, again, this is your decision. We have the capability, but what we wanted to do was show you what was permitted at Evergreen Clinic, where we had 1,000 patients, and we proved this over a very long period of time. They, at Evergreen, their executive director decided they did not want that, but we are perfectly capable of providing this app. And again, when you go through everything and make out the list of what it is that you require, then our team, led by Dr. Wassel, will then be talking with you and whomever else you designate, and we will work out exactly what must be done and a time frame for doing it.
Sure, I got it. Yep. Yeah. So I guess that's all I could think of as of now. So we'll discuss with the other team members and come up with the use cases which we might have to incorporate further. So is there is there anything more also to show over here?
No, this is basically it. We wanted to just show you what we have done, but also in the materials which we have sent you. Mike, I'm sure, has sent you a great deal.
Yep.
We have indicated what we are capable of providing. It is simply a decision on your part as to what you require. Then Dr. Wassel and his team will interact with you and your team, and will just provide the details that you require.
Sure. Yeah. So Ken, what I'm thinking right now is that maybe next couple of days we will organize a demo, and in the demo our team will show or demonstrate what we have been doing till now. So what's the process? So
Excellent.
here in India, so as I had mentioned you earlier, that we are operating in the rural part of few villages. So what we have been doing, we have a local contact person over there. The patient interacts with that patient, that local person. That local person connects to the doctor over the telemedicine, and then doctor in the center, he basically in the hub, he is assisted by a assistant. So we have 4 players. So, and how does this work? After that, it goes to a pharmacy, and then there is a lab, diagnostic lab, and then the results comes back in. So what we will do, we will demonstrate the entire process. And in that process, we also need the localization, the local language support. So we'll show you the entire thing in the next couple of days. And I guess then it will be much better interaction. Okay, what is already there, what has to be done, and what should be the time frame.
Yeah, just to mention, Ralph Mager, the gentleman that is, his organization is in Buffalo, is affiliated with the University of Buffalo, New York, in the States, of course. We have, through him, been interviewing Hindi speakers. These are not only translators, but persons with advanced degrees in computer science. And as mentioned previously, our company will bring 5 persons that you select at our expense over to the United States, specifically to Buffalo. They will be trained, manuals will be prepared. I'm not talking merely print, but rather videos. And we will see to it that also personnel, 1 Hindi speaker, and Dr. Wassel or one of his team will accompany those 5 persons back to India, and will spend some time with them as they set up the system and put everything into good order. And on top of that, we will have 24/7, in other words, around the clock, support emanating from Buffalo as needed. I didn't mean to be too long, but I thought it would be helpful if you knew that.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that will be very much helpful. So we need the constant like support, and in the rural part, they don't understand English very well. So we need Hindi support as well.
We have plenty of Hindi speakers, trust me.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for working on that as well. Okay. So I guess the next step is that in a couple of days, we will arrange a demo from our side.
Excellent.
And send you a link across.
Well, this is good. And the person that I'd appreciate it if you'd interact with is Mike Consoli, because he is our global marketing director, and he will coordinate everything so that we have our team all ready to listen to your demo.
Sure, I will coordinate with Mike.
Okay, this is excellent. I want to thank everyone who has participated today. I appreciate everybody. We're talking people in Europe, and the US, and in India, and everybody's done their part, and I personally am grateful to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.